I'm Ian Weiner. I'm a certified financial planner. This is Todd Watley. He's a certified elder law attorney. And on this video, we're going to break down some of our most brutal financial and legal ideas.
We are the owners of Generations Wealth Partners, and we've helped individuals all over the country with their financial goals with tax, legal, and financial planning advice. Let's get to the video.
Okay, so
I don't want to be brutal, but let's be unfiltered. And that's what we've done a radio show for almost 2 years. We don't do it anymore. And we were very unfiltered. We were, I think, sometimes brutal, but our plan's not to be brutal. It's to be unfiltered.
Our point is not to hurt anybody's feelings, but I guess,
sacred cows.
we're willing to tip over sacred cows, and we're willing to, we're going to give you exactly what we think, and we don't want to be mean about it. That's not the point. But let's not dance around this stuff either, because, and here's our perspective. And I ask this in almost every meeting that I'm in, and Todd loves this. I say, hey, do I have your permission to be really candid and transparent with you? Do I have your permission to tell you the truth? And almost every time they're like, please, we expect that. And I say, well, I was going to do it anyway, but I feel better when I have your permission, because then, I'm going to do it because I want to get it off my chest. But I feel better when I have your permission.
And I think as a starting point is I encourage you, as our YouTube audience, you probably think when you go to the doctor, you understand the idea of specialist. If you have a cardiac problem, you're not going to go to your family practice guy. You may go to him or her initially, but if they're worth their salt, they're going to be like, whoa, this is a cardiac issue. I know cardiac stuff, but I'm not a specialist. You need to go to a specialist. If you have kidney disease, your family practice guy may say, oh, you have some kidney issues. I'm going to send you to a kidney specialist, on and on and on and on. People see that in medicine, but they don't see it in law, and they don't see it in financial planning as they should. And I am begging you, the brutal truth here is you have to realize that the person you've been working with in general aspects, either attorney or financial, may not be the best person when you start getting older or when you need very specific advice. And I, as a certified elder law attorney, I focus on two things. Estate planning for typically older people, and I do younger people. It's not that much different, but my real focus is older people, and public benefits, Medicaid, VA benefits, which also tend to lend itself to working with older people. And so I am your old person attorney, typically. And that's all I do. I don't do divorces. I don't represent criminals. All I do are those two things.
You could, right?
I could. I'm licensed to do it, but I don't, because I focus on those two things. And I think my advice in those two areas is very good. My advice, if you're getting a divorce, is like,
Well, your advice is, hey, go talk to a great divorce attorney.
Exactly. And so my brutal advice, and I think yours is too, is you need the advice from a specialist.
And the way that I try to frame it for folks is, you may have had an advisor that you've worked with for 25, 30 years that have gotten you to retirement. They may not be the best advisor to get you through retirement. And, we talk in other videos, and we'll do more of these, just about the deep complexities that come in when we're dealing with retirement and estate planning and legacy planning. It really is an entirely different specialty. And there are a couple of advisors that I know who will acknowledge that, but most won't. Most of it's like, oh yeah, we can take care of that for you, no big deal. And it's because they want to maintain the accounts and be able to keep selling. And look, I get it. I mean, they're in business. That's fine. But what I really want you to think about, and I feel we can have this conversation since we're not sitting down next to each other. You can sit down, have a nice cup of coffee, and be able to process what I'm about to tell you. No one cares about your money and the outcomes of the decisions that you make as much as you. Now, your advisor should care about it, number two, but they can't care about it as much as you. And so if you're not willing to do the little bit hard work of figuring out, who is actually the right professional to get all of these things done the right way, the person that ultimately falls on is you.
Yeah. I see in both legal and financial, but particularly financial, I see people who have gone to someone that they saw as a financial advisor, and they always walk out with an annuity. Why? Wow, I didn't know an annuity was good for everyone, but that's all that person can sell is annuities, and so therefore they're selling hammers. You need a hammer, and it just blows my mind. And same things about attorneys. If your attorney did some contracts for you and did your last will and testament when you first got married, or even in your mid 30s or 40s, now as you get older, or now that your situation is much more complex, you need the advice of a specialist. And this is one thing I'm going to get into details right now is if your sole estate planning tool is a last will and testament, you need to get that relooked at, particularly if you have children, and particularly if your children are no longer minors. There's some complexities there that a last will and testament is not going to manage. And please understand, a last will and testament is what takes your estate through probate. And I will tell you, some states probate is not a big deal, but it's still a deal. And in some states, it's a really big deal. General, not specific legal advice, but general information is you should avoid probate. You should always avoid probate.
But that doesn't always mean a trust.
That doesn't always mean a trust. And this is where people, particularly non-attorneys, respond to YouTube videos and Facebook posts and things are like, oh, you always need a trust. No, you don't always need a trust. You probably need a trust, but if your estate is very simple and you have no concerns about where your money's going to, once you give it to these people, you may not need a trust. And that advice right there will save you $3, $4, $5, $6,000 by not going to someone, be it a financial advisor or an attorney who says, oh, you need a trust. Just blatantly say, you need a trust. No. And I know that's a sacred cow that a lot of attorneys hate when I say it, but you need to sit down with a professional who is looking out for your best interest and will say, we can avoid probate very simply. Does this work for you? And if it does, great, do that. But many times it doesn't work for you, or there's some other issues that professional is supposed to bring up and say, hey, have you thought about this or this or this? Well, then sometimes a trust is what you need to do that, but it's not always what you need.
And I think really that goes back to the idea of, cookie cutter plans really aren't good for anybody. But we see them all the time, and that's an interesting thing. If you have not had a financial plan that is customized to you, then you're probably missing out on some opportunity, and I understand there's an expense for that. I get that. Look, I earn my living on fees. Okay, I don't. Fees aren't necessarily the enemy, but not getting the value of what you're paying or some multiple of the fee that you'd have to pay to get the service done. That's the problem. And so, in our situation, we do everything custom to the client. There's nothing that's cookie cutter. Period. And what that means is our process is a little bit different than most people because we're not willing to assume anything. We're not willing to assume that you just want to do X, Y, and Z just like your neighbor.
Yeah.
And I think the flip side of that is, one of the areas where I think people make a ton of mistakes and miss out on a ton of opportunities is they take advice from the wrong people. And there's two areas where this comes in. Number one is what I call the friends and family plan. And number two is the wrong expert plan. There's some logical fallacies here that we won't get into, but just because your neighbor says that they made X dollars on whatever investment that they did, number one, doesn't mean that that's true. A lot of times those are phishing stories.
Yeah.
Sometimes like I want to have clients that are like, oh, my friend's in this and he did that. I'm like, okay, have him come in and bring the statement, or just ask him for the statement and look at, boy, they just get quiet. The friend quits talking about
You
it.
want a picture of that fish?
Yeah. Like, let's measure the fish,
Yeah.
But the other one, and I'm kind of joking about that, right? But the idea is, don't, this is like the keeping up with the Joneses kind of stuff, don't base your success based on what you perceive someone else's success. You have separate goals, you have separate tools, you have separate opportunities to do things. You need to create a benchmark for yourself, and that benchmark can't be your neighbors or your friends or even your peers. And I know that's kind of tough to talk about, but it's true. Like, if you want to be miserable, try to keep up with the Joneses or your neighbors for the rest of your life. Like, you'll find so many reasons to be miserable. But if you want to be really, if you want to be happy and you want to make the most of your wealth, build a plan for yourself based on achieving your goals. And gosh, it's amazing how fast that it can change things. The other one is don't take advice from professionals who are, and this goes back to what you're saying, but who are giving advice outside of their real circle of competence here. And frankly, where I see this most is with general practice attorneys and a lot of tax preparers.
Mhm.
People tend to accumulate professionals throughout their life, and the more wealth that they grow, they tend to have a little bit more specialties, and so relationships really matter. So
Mhm.
you end up staying with someone for a long time. That doesn't mean that someone who's great at preparing your taxes doesn't mean that that person is also going to be great at giving specific financial advice in complex areas or legal advice in complex areas.
I want to pull back the curtain for just a second. So, as an attorney, once you graduate law school, you can get this thing called a form book. It's a form that the general consensus are here's a book of forms that you as an attorney will need.
I don't. This is news to me. Okay, go ahead.
Oh, is it? Okay. And so you can get this in this form book is a will and a power of attorney and a trust and plus complaints and depositions and interrogatories, all the things that you need as an attorney, a typical attorney. But this trust is a culmination of a lot of different attorneys who said, okay, this is a very cookie cutter trust. And many times attorneys who do general practice, they don't focus on estate planning. They use this trust. And it's amazing how that trust fits everybody. And it's like, oh my God, this trust, your situation's different than your neighbors. And I'm pretty sure your trust should be different than your neighbors. But if both of you went to the same attorney, I'm pretty sure you're going to walk out with a very, very, very similar trust. That's a Word document that they replace their name with yours
Sometimes they
and
forget to do
their
that.
kids with yours.
I've seen
And
that a few
sometimes they
times.
forget they miss it. And it's like, wait, who's Jim? I don't have a kid named Jim. Well, apparently this attorney's last client did.
That would never happen, Todd. Attorneys would
That
never make
happens
those
all the time.
mistakes.
And so it just blows my mind. And so you as a paying customer need to understand, is your attorney using a form book? Is it the same trust he's used for everyone? Or are you going to someone who is a specialist? If you came to see me, I do use software, but that software, every time I answer one question about a client, it affects different questions later on. It is absolutely detailed to your specific situation. It addresses your children, your tax bracket, your everything. It is absolutely perfected to you. Now, do I charge more than your general practice attorney? Yeah, because that software I just paid the bill yesterday. It's almost $8,000 to have this software, but I do it because it's absolutely up to date. It's adjusted on new laws, new court cases. It's absolutely up to date and it's specific to you. I have to charge a little more, but you're getting a much better product.
This goes back to the idea of fees inherently aren't bad, but paying a fee and not getting value is the problem.
Absolutely.
And that's really what we're trying to hit. It's, as you're talking about the form trust, what I'm thinking is it's probably 98% right.
Yeah.
Probably 95, 98% right. And, in math class, 95 is great. 98 is great.
That's
For
an
me, that was like a lot harder than I got, but, that'd be a miracle. But when it comes to your financial planning or your legal work, it's the 2 to 5% that blows everything up. I mean, I have had clients that I've helped where we had to fix an issue that took a long time, and it was before they came to me. It took a long time and a ton of money to fix, and it hinged on one word,
Mhm.
one word
Yeah.
in an entire document.
Well, powers of attorney that I do, typically there's one sentence in most of these form book POAs. One sentence can cost you your entire estate if you need long term care and we're trying to get you on Medicaid. One sentence can make the difference between saving everything and losing everything,
A couple $100,000
or,
routinely.
or hundreds of thousands of dollars. Yes. One sentence.
It's incredible. And
Does that matter to you?
And if it doesn't matter to you, that's fine. That's up to you,
Sure.
But we need to get it off our chest so that we don't feel bad about not telling you about it.
It's the brutal truth.
Really,
Yep.
that's the truth there. Okay, I want to do some more specific ones because I think
Okay.
this one's fun. This is one that drives me nuts right now. Is folks a lot of times look at life insurance the wrong way. This one's going to make everyone mad. I'm going to get so many
All
emails
right,
about
good. We
this.
love emails.
You know, and I'm really talking to younger folks in a lot of cases with this. You
Mhm.
know, folks that are around my age. They're like, oh, you know, I got some life insurance through work. You know,
I've got
that's fine.
50,000.
Yeah,
That's
I got
fine.
50,000. That's fine. And I actually have these conversations with friends people that I'm close to. Sometimes you know you have a hard time having these conversations with strangers, and that's not the point, right? But it's like, okay, this is what I need you to think through a little bit. If that were to happen, if you were to leave the planet tonight, what would be the scenario?
Well,
How would that go?
your job pays you 1 year salary in life insurance. Oh, great. Well, when you're gone, you're not gone for just a year.
Yeah.
You're gone forever.
Yeah.
And your kids need that salary at least until they're 18, if not through college. Your wife, your spouse needs that money. So 1 year's worth of life insurance sounds like a lot, but it's honestly just the beginning.
Yeah. And what drives me nuts is people will say, and they won't say it to my face because they just won't. But, you know, a lot of times what I hear is like, I don't want to be worth more dead than alive. And I'm like, crack another cold one, buddy. You're surprised you might be, but you know, it's like the kind of stuff drives me nuts, man.
Sure.
I mean, if that's your belief, but sometimes the idea is like, okay, you know, they'll be able to, you know, pay some of the mortgage off, or you know, that'll give them a year's worth of income to figure it out. Is that a good strategy? I'm sorry, man.
That's
Like it's like $100 a month to get plenty of coverage. Like, and I guess you know this is kind of a small issue, and you know I don't really want to talk about it a ton, right? But it's like if you're not willing to spend a couple $100 to make sure that if something happened to you, that your family and your kids had exactly the life that you would want them to have if you were here, man, you should take a hard look in the mirror and think about some things a little bit longer. So, you know, look, it doesn't mean that you're going to buy a huge whole life policy, okay? And if that's the answer, if that's the answer that someone tells you, we need to have a different conversation, okay? But this is one of the highest leverage, lowest cost things you can do in
term
financial planning.
insurance is cheap.
It's so cheap.
Mhm.
And it's like, man, think about it differently. What would you want to happen if you left the planet? What would you want to happen? What would you want to pay for? How would you want your your family's experience to go? And if you think about it right now, outside of what the coverage you currently have, and you know, you figure out what that would cost, and you have less coverage than what it would take to do that, you probably want to fix that. So that's one that's like it kind of bugs me. And we don't talk about it a lot because it's geared towards younger people,
Mhm.
but you got to get that right. This is like 101 stuff. I don't care if you buy the term insurance from us. That's not a big deal. And like I'll help you find someone that can do it. That's fine. I don't care. But get it done. Don't be a GoFundMe. Please. Please don't be a GoFundMe.
Well, but just as a guy thinking, particularly if the guy dies and you don't leave your wife enough money, she's going to go after the first guy who walks up and has a decent salary. And do you want your kids being raised by the first guy she finds that just happens to have a good salary, or do you want to give her some time to really think this through and marry the right person rather than just the first person? I mean, that's brutal,
that is
ugly
brutal.
truth.
That is brutal. Yeah.
But if you
Maybe
leave
we need to have
her,
a disclaimer on that part.
well, if you leave her
Our editors
broke,
decide what to do. Yeah.
yeah, if you leave her broke, she's got to do
Is
something.
that the experience you want her to have? Like, do you want your partner, what you know, whatever the gender is, right? Do you want them to have to work through the fear and anxiety of, oh no, what are we going to do next?
Absolutely.
And if not, maybe figure it out. That'd be probably a good thing. This one gets me passionate. I got to say,
Yeah, you're right.
you know, that's a tough one. You know, another one is this one bugs me quite a bit too. Is I see this one a lot, and I guess we kind of talked about it. I'll do this one fast, but it's like, you know, people will talk about their current advisory team. They're like, oh, they're super nice. And I'm like, yeah, of course they're nice. That's their job, is to be nice.
You're
But
paying them to be nice.
you know, and move the accounts and see how nice they are. So, sorry, that one's I might get in trouble for that one. But you know, this is something that I learned, and I'm a pretty nice guy. I'm a pretty decently nice guy
You're decent.
most of the time. My wife might disagree sometimes. Sometimes I don't filter as well as I should, and there's some reasons for
Yep.
that. But I try to do a really good job with that. But it's like at a certain point, I'm not interested in nice. I'm interested in competent. you know. And so when you're looking for the team that's whether going to get you to retirement, to and through retirement, and make sure that you execute all the stuff that you need to do, look for competence, not nice. I think that's worth every penny. Another one that's really good is this one, and we could probably do a whole video on this. Cookie cutter or rules of thumb should not be applied to your circumstance. This one gets my blood boiling a little bit. My favorite is the 4% rule. It's a
Rule.
it's a rule.
It's a rule of thumb.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Look up the etymology of rule of thumb, and we'll see if those are great ideas. So let's think through that. But there's a couple of these, right? If you're in a high income bracket, always do the Roth or the mega backdoor Roth. Not necessarily. There may be other circumstances, right? The 4% rule in retirement, or be 60-40 in your bonds and stock portfolio. These are general rules. This is cookie cutter stuff. We're painting with a broad brush. Is it better than nothing? Maybe. But are you willing to accept 30, 40%, 50, 60% of the ideal advice that you should have? Maybe. It's free though. You'll save money. One of our things
It's
is,
a really nice guy.
save money, save a buck, lose a fortune.
Save a buck.
That kind of goes to the other idea of hiring competence versus nice. Competence is a little more expensive. There's a market for higher competence, and it's going to be more expensive, but you're going to get what you pay for. So there's a cost for higher competence most of the time. That doesn't mean that if you pay more, you're going to get more competence. That's a different issue, But just applying rules of thumb to your scenario and figuring that's gonna work out really well in the long run. It might not. It might cost you everything. So please don't apply rules of thumb. Create a personalized plan for your situation. Another one that really kind of drives me nuts is, and I guess this all kind of goes together, taking advice from the forum or the Reddit,
Oh yeah.
Look, I love working with DIY investors. A lot of times they're a lot of fun to work with because we can have a high level conversation pretty quickly. We can get into some of the key issues, but everyone has blind spots. Everybody does. So here's a few minutes of some pretty direct advice. Look, they're not specific tax or financial things. It's really more big picture conceptual stuff. Here's how you should approach planning. Here's how you should approach your financial team. I guess, get enough term life insurance to cover the needs if you were to leave the earth early. I think that's a pretty straightforward one, but doing the basics really well is really important, and get the basics down before you try to do all the fancy stuff.
Yeah, we would love to work with you. Okay. We would love for you to click the link below and set up an appointment with us. Just know we're not just doing this for this video. We are very brutal. We are very honest with you, and we may ask or may not ask, hey, can we be honest? Can we be upfront with you? Because that's what you need. Okay. That's what you need. And that's what we give. And we've both decided that we're going to do that. We're going to be very honest with our clients and tell them what they need to do, even if it sometimes hurts their or their advisor's feelings.
Yeah, and really the goal is, we're always going to tell you the truth. Sometimes we're working on doing that in the gentlest way possible. But our thing is, we have so many people that we help. We can't remember everything that we told everybody, and so we just always do the right thing in the moment and give the absolute best possible advice, because we don't want to run into you in Walmart and ever have to duck aisles. We don't have the time or energy for that. So we're always going to do the right thing. We're always going to help you think through that in the right way. But really this video is just designed to give you some things to think about as you're approaching it, whether or not you have a team or not, or whether or not you ever even hire a team or not. These are some good things to be thinking about. So we'll see you on the next video.
Okay, thanks.